Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors, your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. Glad you're here this morning. Got a great show lined up. Got a special guest here in the studio. But of course, first our weather. Brought to us by Haney Technical Center at the corner of Baldwin and Highway 77. Got a little bit more rain this morning, but it's going to be clearing on out. Finally, we'll be looking at some good skies, hopefully by the afternoon. So let's make sure that stay safe on that road and don't be skidding around everything, and always look out for the other person. High today is going to be 78 and low tonight 64. And the water temperature finally dropped that 1 degree down to 74. We're going to start seeing a little bit of movement, I feel like, in that water temperature. Let's take a look at our river readings. They're brought to us by Watson's Landing Marina and Dry Storage. About 2 minutes east of downtown Panama City, right on Watson Bayou, a really nice place there. We're looking at that place called Bluntstown right at 2.9, and we'll call it right at 3 foot. And not a lot of movement compared, but they didn't get as much rain to the east of us as it did to the west of us. And looking at the Choctawhatchee at Caryville, we talked about yesterday about it really shooting up, and it's about to peak on out probably tonight or tomorrow. That is looking at it peaking out about 8 foot, which is not in flood stage. So we'll just wait and see tomorrow's reading a tell of it. So they're calling right now it's reading a 5.2, but it's going to be going up to around 8 foot. Our tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn Funeral Home and Cemetery. Today is October the 28th, and looking at some good tides in the next 3 or 4 days, some really strong tides. This is 8:04 this morning is a low tide and high tide at 10:43 tonight. We got a good 1.8 foot range on our tide chart. The marine forecast, they've had gale warnings out in the Gulf, and luckily everybody got out of that bad weather ahead of time, and thank goodness for the modern weather forecasters and all. We've really been able to avoid a lot of bad situations. But anyway, it's still blowing. With that being said, don't get out in a kayak, don't get out in a little sailboat, don't get out in a small boat. It's still blowing. It's coming out of west-southwest at 10 to 15 today. All right, take a break and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back and welcome to our guest, Travis Bassford. Good morning, Travis.
How you doing?
Can't shake hands with him. He's got a bad arm over here. Welcome back.
Yes, sir.
Well, what's going on?
I'm on the injured reserve here. I've got some torn cartilage in my wrist, but I won't go miss Panhandle Outdoors, so I can't be in uniform on light duty.
Okay. All right, but you're still able to do a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And you'll be getting well soon.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Just a few more weeks in here, so.
Well, I guess we're going to get right to the biggest subject everybody's talking about. It's buzzing all over the place. The bears.
The bears, yes. We had the first bear hunt in over 20 years this past weekend. In the state of Florida, and it was a good, big success, and a lot of bears were taken, especially in our region. So we'll get right to that. In our bear management unit is the East Panhandle unit, and they actually had to close the season, which we had talked about that before. It might happen. They actually had to close the season at the end of that first day because they had met the number they were trying to hit as far as
our quota was 40, wasn't it?
That was a number that the biologist put in there, yes, sir. Okay. There was a buffer there because we did go over that, but that was the number they had originally put out. So with the tagging system and all the check stations and all the information that we had being gathered, once they saw this number start going up, they went ahead and made the decision to close it after that first day. So in our area alone, which is Bay and Washington County, and then east over to Jefferson, Wakulla, they killed 112 bears that opening weekend. We did have a few come in the next day because you have 12 hours to check your bear in. And, just up here, I was talking to you before we got started, just up here at the 231 Highway 20 check station, they had like over 30 brought in there.
Oh, my goodness. That almost reached a quota right there, that one station.
I know.
Wow.
I know. So
I taught some boys who hunted over there around Orange and Liberty County, and there was one party got like 3 of them. There was a group of guys. Yeah.
I believe it. That hunters have been wanting to do it for a long time, and they had scouted and had set up. And a lot of these people, that I've talked to, I hunt up in Jackson County, and thank goodness we don't have to deal with them up there as far as it relates to deer hunting, because sometimes the people think the bear run the deer off and everything like that. But they were ready for them, and they did real good. The biggest bear, I got a few numbers for you. Some officers that worked the check stations here locally. Officer Ben Waring, he worked up there at 231 and Highway 20. He said the biggest one brought in here in Bay County that he saw was 318 pounds. There were several in the mid 250s, which is a good sized bear. But most people did good. Most of them were harvested with high-powered rifle, and most people followed the rules. You know, they brought them in like they were supposed to. We had a few just region-wide that were undersized, and those were addressed. I think there might have been 1 or 2 citations and some warnings. You know, the size limit was 100 pounds. Right. So if you're under that, you know, it's illegal. But you know, we had some people, they brought some in that were pretty close, and, you know, we had some 100-something pounders brought in, and the biologists, you know, they're doing all their samples. They can tell a lot about a bear just by taking a hair sample, you know, age and diet and all that stuff. And I know I heard a story about a hunter who brought one in, and they said, well, it's 100-something pounds, you know, and they said, this is a cub, and the hunter's like, what, cub? You know, but it is. It's still a young bear. When you think about, like we talked about earlier this year, they trapped the state record was 740 pounds earlier this year. So, but they did good. It was a good time, and it was a cool experience. You know, I've never seen it. You know, that I can remember. Having a bear hunt. So they're going to use all this information as well as a population estimate. We haven't had one here in our area since 2002, and in 2016 we're going to have that. The biologists are going to do that population estimate and all the information they got from these hunts to go into what they're going to do for 2016. And, you know, the dates, whether that'll be the same, we don't know yet, because it opened on the same day as archery season.
I was like, sort of archery sort of overshadowed. All the bow hunters sort of took a back seat to this big bear hunt.
They did. And, you know, some people, if you weren't over a pile of corn or bait, you could deer hunt and bear hunt at the same time.
I know of a local dentist that actually did that. He was able to do that. Yep.
That's pretty neat, you know. So it was a good time, and you know, total, I think I've got a few numbers here. I know some numbers have been thrown around, but total statewide, we harvested 295 bears, and they had that statewide objective at 320. So as we approached that objective, they went ahead and shut it down after the first weekend for the state.
Right.
And you know, that's a lot of bears, and it's gonna go into, like I say, these hunts in the future, and hopefully something that we can continue to do.
And you were telling me before the show about, you know, how many bears we still have around here in the Callaway area. You know, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it?
We sure do. And you know, before I went on, got off with this wrist here and injured it, we have bear calls all the time, especially Highway 22, Callaway area. We've had them in Highland Park. We've had them all over, and most of the time, the vast majority of those calls is bears getting into garbage at night. And some of these communities to the west of us, they've been dealing with this longer than we have. But one thing I wanted to let people know, if you have a bear, if we've been out, you know, for a bear call, and we have different things that we do when we come on these bear calls, but the number one thing you can do if you've got a bear around, secure your garbage. Don't put it out on the side of the house or anything like that. Keep it somewhere where they can't get to it. And if you're going to put it out for the trash man, do it the morning of pickup, not the night before, because especially this time of year, they're coming out, they're trying to pack on pounds for the winter, and if they got a food source, an easy food source, they're going to get it.
And you got a great point right there. They're just sort of getting all this food they can, sometimes 3 and 4 pounds a day. You were saying, you know, stored up. That's just in their DNA. They're going to do that, and they know cold weather's coming. So
it is.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Be right back with Travis. Okay, welcome back. Sitting here with Travis Basford with the FWCs and working plain clothes now, but he's still with us and glad to have you. We talked about bears. Now we mentioned the bow season opened up also, and it was a successful weekend. I showed a few pictures of McCormick boys and a couple of boys up there in Wausau getting a nice buck. But what have you all heard about bow season?
It kind of got overshadowed with the bear, but there were some deer taken, and archery did open. And whether they're going to do that in the future, you know, have bear season and deer archery open the same day, we don't know. But I think it's going to be somewhere around this October, you know, timetable as far as in the future. But it did open Saturday. It's going to be open through November 25th. Archery and crossbow, and then we got general gun coming in right there those 4 days around Thanksgiving. They released the doe days for, you know, our area. We have deer management area D1 and D2. D2 is going to be north of I-10 in the Panhandle, D1 south, and just like last year, they're going to have very similar days. It's going to be 8 days north of I-10.
Okay.
They're going to have 2 that Saturday and Sunday during the Thanksgiving split, during those 4 days of Thanksgiving for general gun. Then they're going to have 3 other weekends in December. And then down here, they're going to have the 4 doe days again, south of I-10, which will be 2 over the Thanksgiving holiday and then 2 more in December.
Okay. Got to get those straight now because it's going to be, in our viewing area, we've got both those areas. So
we do, and it's not a county thing, just like last couple years. It's I-10 is going to be the separator in those 2 zones.
And that's a good dividing line too, really. I mean, you got a border there, so you know where you're going to be. It's not like you're walking out in the woods.
It is, in some of these, leases and management areas, there's not a county sign there in the woods,
Yeah.
But I-10, you can't mistake that.
That's right, exactly.
That's a solid roadway. Yep. So another thing coming up too for any young people out there who want to do that hunter safety class, well, you don't have to be young. If you're born after June 1st, 1975, we got a hunter safety class coming up. It's going to be at the new Steelfield Range, November 6th at 6 p.m. Good friend of mine, fellow officer Dennis Palmer, is going to be teaching the law enforcement section. Have you been out that range yet?
Yes, I have a couple of times. Very nice.
I have too, and it really is nice, and being down south, we had stuff like that all over, but here, unless you come to one of these little indoor ranges, it was kind of hard to do stuff like that, like sight-in rifles and stuff like that, and me and my wife went up there last year. It is super nice.
It really is, and we've encouraged our viewers to go up there, and a lot of them have. It's nice.
Good deal. So that again is November 6th, and it's just a great opportunity to get your hunter safety if you need it. And then they'll have a field day the day after where you can go and shoot. They're going to shoot bows and shotguns, and I think they still shoot the 22 rifles. So that's a good thing. And then also with that hunter safety stuff, I wanted to mention it's been going on for a few years now, but that mentoring exemption program. So if you're born after June 1st, 1975, to hunt on your own over 16, you need a hunter safety course certificate. Excuse me. If you're over that age 16, it's a mouthful here, and you don't have the hunter safety, you can still get a hunting license and go if you're with someone over 21 years of age and they're supervising you. Kind of like they kind of put that in there so you can try it out before you actually go do the class and start buying license regularly. So that's a good opportunity if you're not really sure about it. But anyways, that class again, November 6th, 6 p.m. at the Steelfield Range.
And and often we have, like my students in class, you've been in there before, and you'll see some of them just sort of want to try it out and all, and just go with somebody. That's an excellent opportunity, and to see if you really, if that's what your can of corn, what you want to do.
It is, because before that you couldn't buy a license without it, and now you can do it, but you still need to be under supervision. So I know I did it with a good friend of mine. I grew up with. He wasn't the biggest hunter, but he wanted to try it out. So, so he was able to do that, and we went and did a dove hunt at the farm. He really enjoyed it. So, but anyways, and I know you've talked about, I guess you have talked about, we got the commission meeting coming up.
On the red snapper, go and mention on your view of it. What's coming on?
Well, it's gonna be, this could be huge. It could be restructuring the way the state and federal agencies look at red snapper. And the way I say restructuring is, instead of National Marine Fisheries, the Gulf Fisheries Management Council, instead of them being the lone decider of season dates, size limits, bag limits, and all of that, they've got a lot of feedback from the states. They're going to try to transition that over to a region and then maybe a state level on managing not only obviously the state fishery but the federal fishery for red snapper. And I think what everyone wants is, especially here locally, I mean, red snapper is just a huge impact on our economy. We've got all the local fishermen that love to do it. We've got the charter fleet, and we've got thousands of people that come down here every year from up north to catch red snapper. And they catch the other reef fish, but that is the prize fish.
Well, I've coined it years ago. That's the money fish.
It is.
And that's the only. I've told people that's the only. Right here in my book, I trying to decide what kind of fish to put on the cover of it. The only one I put was a red snapper, because in the early years, back in the early 1900s, that's what brought them down. And still today, almost 100 years later, that still brings people down.
Same thing. And I mean, they're huge. Panama City to Pensacola, that area there is just known for a lot of them and some
It's
real
a
big
healthy,
snapper.
healthy population, good bottom, and it's just a healthy population.
It is, and we've seen it really come back. You know, I know with these restrictions, it's been hard on some people, and I know there's been a lot of pushback either way. But I don't know about, when I'm growing up, I'm 30. Growing up, I didn't see too many snapper over 30 inches. That was kind of a rare thing. And now every year, I mean, you see that, you see fish like that all the time.
And what a thrill it is, not just for me to catch one, to see somebody else, or catch one, a kid or something, catch a fish like that. What a thrill.
It is.
And it's all because of regulations. We were able to get in there and regulate it. I know sometimes people don't like regulations, but this is the result of it.
It is. And you've seen the state the last couple years, they've had some pretty long state water seasons, and maybe that will spill over now that they're moving toward this. But again, that's going to be, if you want to go out to that, it's going to be November 18th and 19th. It's at the Majestic Beach Resort, and that's on Front Beach Road just east of Edgewater. Okay. Out there on the beach. It's a cool process to see how these rules are made. You can go online to myfwc.com and see exactly what all they're going to be talking about. But that snapper, they're going to talk about that the first day, and that's going to be a big thing. Let's see, I made a few more notes on that because, this thing could be happening, could be happening pretty quick. They're looking at final action is possible, they said, by January 2016. If that passes by January 2016, we could look at that new restructuring for the upcoming snapper season.
Wow, that's a big deal.
It is.
A lot of times they start these things and it's 2 or 3 years down the road, but now this is like fast tracked.
They are.
That.
Yep, they are. Yeah. They've been talking about it for a while, and one thing they discussed too is whether they want to release all the responsibilities as far as we have the sector separation, we have the private recreational anglers, and we have the for hire vessels or the charter fleet, whether they would release all that to a region or state level for rulemaking and season dates, or if they would release one fishery or the other. So they're going to talk about all these things. The commission is going to talk about, because it's a big responsibility too, taking that on.
And another thing too, and I'm in a position to see this, you're going to hear all kind of, from both sides, and you got to separate the fact from what people are just saying for their own benefit. And this is the way to do it. You go to these meetings and you get informed sources to tell us what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you have an opinion on it, usually, they'll give almost everyone an opportunity to speak. Now, your time limit, they've got to cover certain things, so time might be restrained, depending on, the way the day's going. But if you want to go there and speak on this, and I imagine there'll be several organizations out there talking about this. So, good thing to go to.
All right, and we'll keep reminding you of it too, and hopefully we can make it out there a little bit ourselves. Let's take our final break. We'll be right back with Travis. All right, welcome back to our final segment. We've got a lot of stuff going on here with Travis, but first, let's take a look at our fishing game forecast brought to us by Mark Coward of Edgewater Beach Realty. You're looking on the screen there are times from 1:13 to 3:13 this morning, this afternoon after lunch. 1:42 to 3:42, that weather be breaking, be a good time to get outdoors. And if you're in the woods, I guarantee you're going to see a lot of acorns that's been falling with this wind. They've been falling naturally, but I bet
I've heard them on my roof, and they are dropping.
It sounds like rain sometimes when it's coming down. I love acorns falling. It just
dinner bell for the deer too.
Oh man, it's great for everybody. All right, now what else we got here?
Well, before we get to the case of the month, one more thing. They're going to be talking about at the commission meeting, and it's pretty interesting if you're a duck hunter. Duck season, we've had our early season. It was a good turnout for the wood ducks, the teal. There was a few of them that made it down here, but not too many. But regular duck season, we're going to have that the November split, November 21st through the 29th, and then regular duck season is going to come in December 12th through January 31st. A lot of the bag limits for the different species of duck is going to be the same for our area: 3 wood ducks, 2 redheads, 2 bluebills. You can have 6 ringnecks. The new thing this year, you can have 2 canvasbacks. That's something that over the last several years they've really come back. Yeah. And we work, obviously that's set by the feds, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. That's a migratory bird, so they set that. And based on their surveys, their biologists, they said the numbers have come back enough to up that to 2. For several years, you couldn't harvest a canvasback, and then it went to 1, and now they're going to up that to 2. So that's pretty exciting. We see a few of them in our area. Mainly on the bays, in the freshwater, we've got the wood ducks and the teal and the ringnecks, but on the bays, the redheads and bluebills, I know a lot of people were hoping that the redheads would be bumped up because Sometimes they get in here and there's just thousands of birds out there, and you go out there and you can only harvest 2, but that's going to stay at 2, but 2 canvas bags, which is pretty neat.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right, quickly, the case of the month. What do we have here?
Okay, this one's going to be kind of interesting and kind of goes to show, you know, as Fish and Wildlife officers, we never know who we're dealing with or what kind of situation we're dealing with. And this was one, my shift partner, Officer Steve Wicker, he was called out late, or I should say early one morning for a search and rescue up there around the mouth of Burnt Mill Creek. Well, he got dressed, and by the time he came out, the boat that they were going to do a search and rescue on had been towed in, and there were 2 subjects on board. They had some blue crabs. There were some empty shotgun shells in the boat. Started interviewing them, seeing what was going on, and the stories were kind of not making sense, a little sketchy. And he asked them how they got the crabs, and one thing led to another, and basically they admitted to robbing blue crab traps up and down Burnt Mill Creek there, you know, going out from the boat landing toward the open bay. And that's a felony in the state of Florida to rob crab traps. So they did that. One of the subjects actually had an outstanding warrant. Bay County Sheriff's Office were there. They took that person in, and it pretty much died off that night. Well, as we got more information in, a search and rescue was then started again that next morning for a missing person. That person was found that morning. He was deceased. FWC officers and Bay County Sheriff's deputies recovered that body. And one thing led to another. A warrant was issued on the FWC side of it for felony crab trap robbing, and that was our side of it. And then so after some more interviews were made, another arrest was made for possible murder charge.
Wow.
Could be aggravated assault. That's still under investigation. I know y'all probably seen it on the news, but that just goes to show you we never know what we're dealing with.
Right.
And that was Officer Steve Wicker and Lieutenant Jay Chesser that responded to that both that night and the next morning.
Well, again, congratulations. Good job on those guys just getting out doing their job.
That's what they do.
All kinds of weather and situations like that. But Travis, got to wrap it up, buddy. Thank you so much. And
yes, sir.
Hopefully arm gets a lot better.
Hope to be in uniform next time.
All right, okay.
That's the plan.
Good deal. Folks, always thank you all for watching Panhandle Outdoors. We appreciate your viewership and you supporting our sponsors. You do something really good for your fellow man today. Have a great day and God bless.
Thanks for joining us for Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors features hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.